Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. We've entered a new era of political truthiness once Jen Psaki has time to get to just exactly the response right to convey to the public.
I'll circle back if there's more I can share with you. I'll circle back with you if there's more to convey. I'll have to just circle back with you. We can circle back. I'm happy to circle back with you. I can circle back. I will have to circle back on that one. That's an excellent question. Oh, such an important question. We will circle back with you, and we'll circle back with you. It's an interesting question, but we'll circle back. I'm happy to circle back, but I'll have to circle back with you on it. It's a good question, but we'll circle back with you on this today. We will certainly circle back with you more directly.
Hopefully we're going to hear less of that now that she's asked for the questions in advance from the press corps. So that should clear up the surprising questions that she gets. She's not prepared to answer.
Unbelievable. I called that, though, because during the campaign, they previewed questions and screened questions for Biden. Now they're doing it for her. That's her job. She's supposed to be able to handle any question that comes her way.
Maybe Donna Brazile can get the questions and slip them
that's right.
to Jen Psaki before her briefings. For more on the change in attitude in the D.C. press corps, as well as this provocative notion that conservative millennials have gone the way of the dodo bird, pleased to be joined by David Keltz. He was a speechwriter in the executive branch. He's the author of Media Bias in the Trump Presidency and the Extinction of the Conservative Millennial. And he had served as an intern in the White House for VP Pence as well. David, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
So, you, like everybody else that has a room temperature IQ, you've noticed a bit of a change in the tenor of the D.C. press corps with the changeover in administrations.
Yes, certainly. It's almost as if the previous reporters that were in the White House covering the Trump administration have now been replaced by White House interns that are just very excited about the opportunity to even be in the briefing room.
Uh-huh. Yeah, what happened to Jim Acosta? He left once President Trump was gone. Where did he go?
Right. Well, I imagine he's probably working on a book deal or something. But I just want to point out that, when Kayleigh McEnany started as Trump's press secretary, Jonathan Karl, the White House correspondent for ABC, started by asking her if she promised to be truthful and transparent, and she said that she would be. And, of course, Jen Psaki has promised the same thing. But I don't remember the press corps back then when McEnany said that she was going to be truthful. I don't remember them giving her the benefit of any doubt or saying, isn't this a wonderful thing that she's going to do for us?
And so what should the GOP response to this be? I mean, I hate just sort of complaining about things that we know are true without really doing much about it or directing people other places to go. I mean, nobody's really watching these press briefings anymore either. Anyway, nobody really is paying attention to Joe Biden for good or bad. They're just not. We're more interested on the center-right side in arguing about what's going to happen to Liz Cheney or Marjorie Taylor Greene within the House Republican caucus.
Yes, well, I guess apparently I'm maybe the only person on the right who's had the unfortunate opportunity to watch or listen to all of these press briefings in some form. I really believe that there needs to be more reporters along the lines of Peter Doocy who are actually going to ask insightful questions about these now more than 40 executive actions or 40 executive orders that President Biden has taken. And there really needs to be somebody to ask for what specifically is in these policies and how exactly they're going to help the everyday American person. And I'm not hearing much of that. I know that House Majority Leader McCarthy gave a speech yesterday. The Republican Majority Leader talked about how we need to learn more about energy policy and how that can benefit the American worker. But I'm not hearing much at this point from the Republican Party about what we're going to do to combat this. And certainly the meeting with the 10 Republicans at the White House, you had Senator Romney was there and Susan Collins, and how they're trying to, this $1.9 trillion stimulus that President Biden has offered is going to be a disaster. J.P. Morgan came out with an estimate that said that most states have actually not seen a decrease in their revenue. So there's no reason to send $350 billion to bail out poorly run Democrat states.
Hmm. With respect to the extinction of the conservative millennial, uh, uh, expound on that. Where the conservative millennial, so we're talking about kids that just out of college to just under 40 years old. There's no conservatives to be found in that demographic?
Well, perhaps the word extinction is a little bit too severe, but I think it's certainly true that in my experience, being a millennial and someone that was on college campuses in the last decade or so, there's very few conservatives to be found that either will admit they're conservative or will speak openly about this. And I do believe that it's now, as these graduates come into the workforce and we're seeing more and more of the woke culture and the business, corporate social justice and what have you, that they're trying, you can't have not going to be they're not going to be hired based off merit or based off their ability to actually do the job, but more so as to whether or not they have the same political views. And I think that's a huge problem, especially when you look at the lack of employment opportunities right now.
And so, your diagnosis, though, in terms of, I think you're describing, I think, a real dynamic on the landscape. But why? How did this come to be? Do you think,
Well, I
particularly
think
with
there's a
millennials?
sure. I think there's a number of factors. Firstly, a lot of even millennials who grew up in a conservative household, by the time they finish high school or get to a college campus, in many ways it's sort of a growing of age thing where it's common to have different views and almost rebel against your parents' views. But I think the indoctrination of what has happened on college campuses with professors who refuse to hear any other point of view has made it so that a lot of students now, they don't want to write an essay or even ask a question that could potentially get them a bad grade in a class. And so I think that has kind of boiled over now.
Oh, that's happening at the high school level. I know a Lane Tech student who leans pretty Republican and was questioning his social studies teacher, and she put him on mute and is not allowing him to speak because she does not like his views because it doesn't go along with
Right,
her narrative. So
right.
it's
I
just
mean,
not happening
we've
at the
gone
college level; it's happening at high schools too.
we've gone at rapid speed from I'll defend to the death your position, but I disagree, but I'll defend your right to speak. Now you don't have the opportunity to speak, and I think that is a serious problem that we're seeing all across the country now. And with the isolation and more virtual learning, I think that you're going to find it's even less likely that students are going to want to speak out at any level.
Do you worry at all, particularly for young people, that this polarization and the silencing of dissent will uh, push people towards more extreme, not just positions, maybe even less so positions, but more extreme actions in defense of support of their positions?
Well, I'm sure that could go for either side, but I
Yes.
definitely think that when you're, Tucker Carlson has been speaking about this a lot lately. I mean, a lot of these executive actions that we keep hearing about involve racial equity, and no one really from the Biden team seems to be able to articulate what exactly that means. I'm probably the only person who actually looked through one of the executive orders that mentioned it, and there's not a whole lot of substance there. But I think that you are going to see a backlash when you're a certain skin color and you're basically being told that your skin color you don't matter because of your skin color, and we want to help other people. And I just think that that's going to cause a lot of division.
Since you are one, as you say, who do those who lean center right in that millennial demographic? I mean, who do you get the sense they look to for intellectual guidance or guidance
Well,
generally?
certainly Ben Shapiro is a major player, as you know. He's got a podcast. He's got the Daily Wire. Um, People like Charlie Kirk probably are pretty popular, and so I think a lot of millennials tend to look to people that are on the younger cohort. They're not necessarily watching Fox News, but they're definitely listening to podcasts, and they're trying to have an understanding of how did this happen exactly? Why are we told in school that our country is just terrible and miserable? Why can't we have another way of looking at things? And I think that they are that's why these platforms are becoming incredibly successful.
You think that I mean, I don't know what sort of perspective you have on this or could have on this, but they listen to this person, that person. You get the sense that they read anything, that they have any understanding of historical American history or historical movements in the West, any notion of this concept of the Western canons, any appreciation for the language or arts. Do they think at all, or do they just surf YouTube? I mean, obviously we're making wild overgeneralizations, but so generally speaking, that's what we're talking about. Generally speaking, that they don't know anything, so they're just repeating lines that they heard from other people who are also repeating lines that they heard from other people, and they have no foundation for what they're repeating. They have no real understanding. They're just repeating lines because a lot of the people they listen to also have never read a book of any particular import, even though they may have written some books, and they are just repeating lines too.
Well, that goes to the point of this being a problem on both the left or right. It's not limited to one persuasion, and I think that it's definitely true that a lot of people these days especially younger people, are spending a lot of time on social media, and you ask if they read. Well, maybe they're reading 280 characters, but I don't know personally how many books they're reading. And I think that when you look at simply just retweeting a phrase that kind of sounds catchy or is a quick win, that's wonderful. But if you want to actually have a conversation with somebody and be able to articulate your ideas about why liberty and the Constitution and property rights and that kind of the conservative principles that we espouse, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a lot of young people that can articulate why that's the view that they have.
Yeah, and there are no books, by the way, guys, because it could have coronavirus on it, so everything's online.
Yeah, I think
it doesn't include books.
Yeah, right. Okay, I think you're getting to something. Actually, I think that's exactly right. They look at this like YouTube. Conservatism has just become like another WWF fake sport. This guy slammed this guy in an interview or something like that, and then you actually watch the thing, and it's nothing of the sort. Number one, it's just hype, and number two, it's not even particularly interesting. It's just a repetition of pat lines that you could cut and paste from the RNC website, for example, on our side to be a little bit self-reflective. I think that's a huge problem, and I don't think very many people talk about it. This latest person on TV's book, or this latest pundit's book, and we talked to some of those people, not too many because they're boring, because they don't know anything. So I don't know. I mean, it's somebody who actually probably speaks to them and has more cachet with that generation, including center-right sort of activists of that generation than certainly I do. Maybe explore that some more, and you could repopulate the species of conservative millennials.
Yeah, well, certainly I'm trying to write articles that I think give a different perspective, a point of view, and they lend a voice to the conservative side. And so, an article is typically anywhere from 800 to 850 words. So that would be a good start, would just be for young conservatives to check out. I'd certainly recommend the American Spectator, where I've written a number of articles for. And I just think that there needs to be more of people having the courage to do research on their own, and not because they're assigned something in class. I mean, reading is not supposed to be something that is strenuous and difficult. Perhaps people feel that way, but maybe they just haven't been picked up the right material.
David Keltz, speechwriter, former speechwriter in the executive branch, author of Media Bias in the Trump Presidency and the Extinction of the Conservative Millennial. He also served as a White House intern for VP Pence. David, thanks for joining us. Good luck with the book.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
Times are certainly uncertain. In fact, the return of food shortages is likely. Don't take chances. Make the decision to acquire a dependable supply of long-lasting emergency food. Food that lasts for up to 25 years in storage, ready the moment you need it. There's an old saying, failing to plan means planning to fail. Don't wait for the next crisis. Have a 3-month, 6-month, or even 1-year supply of food on hand. It's easy and affordable. We're My Patriot Supply, America's leader in emergency preparedness. We've served millions of folks like you for over a decade, and our mission is your survival. Our meals are delicious and provide you with 2,000 calories a day, and our kits arrive quickly and discreetly at your doorstep. Visit MyPatriotSupply.com and feast your eyes on the food that could save your life someday. That's MyPatriot.